everybody, I'm Elizabeth Hines from PaleoFamily.com, and tonight we have another Instant Pot recipe, and it's really kind of a riff on the pot roast that's been so popular, and that is Swiss steak. Have you heard of Swiss steak? Is that something that you're familiar with? I'm from the Midwest originally, and this is something that we grew up eating. My dad loved it. I'm guessing his mom made it. And so he requested it of me, and so I went to work to try to make this recipe. And so I've written the recipe for a beef roast. You could use a top round, a bottom round, just some kind of roast that isn't real marbled, so a pretty lean roast. And I happen to have some of the sirloin steaks from Butcher Box. If you haven't watched my latest Butcher Box video, I've really been pretty unhappy with them the past couple months. Their customer service stinks, their shipping stinks, and I was just tired of getting boxes full of thawed meat. So I'm using up what I have from them. And so these sirloin steaks are really tender anyway, but I want to show you the full process of how I would do this. So if I had my 2-pound roast, I would slice it against the grain. So you can just look at your meat and see which way the muscle fibers are going. You want to slice against that, don't slice with them. And slice into about 1/2-inch thick slices, which I've done. Even with my sirloins, they were just about like this, and I sliced them in half crossways. And one of the things about Swiss steak that my dad was always trying to explain to me is you have to pound your flour into your meat, and then as it cooks you get this nice thick gravy. So fine, that's what I have been doing, but it's kind of messy, so I'm trying to work out a process that isn't as messy, because when you pound it with the flour, it just kind of gets everywhere. So I have in my Instant Pot a couple tablespoons of avocado oil, and it's heating up on saute more. And I just was, you saw that, pounding these each a couple times with my meat mallet. And then I'm just going to do it one more time in this bag. In my bag I have a cup, I have 1/4 cup of arrowroot and a teaspoon of salt. Whoop, see, there I just did it, I wasn't being careful. Kind of gather it up and then shake off the excess. This bag will end up with sort of holes in it by the time I'm done, so it'll just be going in the garbage. So in the bag, 1/4 cup of arrowroot starch, a teaspoon of sea salt, and a teaspoon of black pepper. And then I'm just going to let that brown on one side, and then I'll flip it and brown it on the other. So I'm just going to pound my flour mixture into both sides. Go ahead and do all of them. You really want to do it this way. You want to put it in a bag, some kind of sealing around it. Otherwise, you saw my flour kind of fly. It would just be like that constantly. Unless you love to clean up big messes, which maybe you do. I do not love cleaning up big messes. No one in my house loves cleaning up big messes, so I'm doing what I can to minimize the mess. So put it in, flip it over so you get the flour on it. Pound it with the spiky side of your mallet just a couple times. Like I said, our meat isn't really tough. I'm just wanting to get some of that arrowroot and seasoning mixed or kind of down deep in the meat. So like I said at the outset, this really is pretty similar to a pot roast, similar in ingredients and method. And I do not like pot roast, and my poor husband loves it. And I know that's been a pretty popular video on my YouTube channel, but I just don't like it. But I love this. I really enjoyed this Swiss steak, so I will happily make this one. Let me clean up just a tad. Scoot this a little bit closer to myself. Yeah, this is perfect. This is just what we want to see, just starting to brown. And then we'll get another set in there. And while the meat is cooking, I'm going to chop up my veggies, which include, it should be 2 stalks of celery. This is 3 because I made broth and I just cut the top off because that's where all the leaves were. So I have 3 partial stalks of celery. I have 2 big carrots, and I have a medium sweet onion and a clove of garlic. And so I'm just going to slice my celery down the middle. It's fine that it's on this cutting board where I cut my meat because it's all going in that pot and it's going to cook for an hour. So we have no problems with any sort of sanitary issue with that. Let me shoot that off so I have plenty of space. Okay, so I'm going to simply scoot these uncooked slices over to the side. So yes, some of the flour stuck to the bottom of my pan. That's totally fine. I actually want that. That's going to bring flavor to my dish. Okay. Let me just chop my carrots. So I just want these sorry, I have some kind of tendinitis in my elbow, and it's the funniest things that hurt, like chopping through that carrot. It's actually causing me a lot of pain. So sorry if I grimace. So just chop these into about 1/4 inch pieces. You could, people say to me all the time that they don't know how I do all this cooking. And, I'm a stay-at-home mom, which of course we all know means that we live in our car. But I do have flexibility, all joking aside. I homeschool my kids, so we're home. Gotta wake this up. And I plan. It takes a lot of planning. And I know that even the planning piece is challenging for some people. I really get that. But little things that you can do, like this could be a really easy meal to throw together. You could absolutely do this in your crock pot, just exactly the same. I don't know that there are any crock pots that have a browning function. Maybe there are by now. I don't have one of those. So I would, in the morning, brown my meat, brown my veggies, do all these steps, and then get it in the crock pot and set it on low and let it go all day. So you can convert a lot of these Instant Pot recipes to crock pots. Or if you really want to use your Instant Pot, you get home early enough in the evening to manage with the hour-long cooking time. I'm going to use a spatula here, kind of scrape up the bottom. Just chop everything in the morning. Get everything prepped and ready to go. So it's really sticking, and so I'm going to add just a little bit more oil. Okay, so my onion is chopped, and then I have my 1 clove of garlic. So there aren't really a lot of ingredients in here. We have the meat, the arrowroot, salt and pepper, the oil that we're sauteing in, and these few veggies, the carrots, the celery, the onion, the clove of garlic. And then we're gonna pour in some broth and some crushed tomatoes, which if you have a garden and you can your own, absolutely you can use your own tomatoes, or you can just buy the crushed tomatoes in the jar. And I was going to say something. Oh yeah, about the broth. I mean, unless you've been living under a rock, you've probably heard how bone broth is so good for you. It's so healing. You know, the fact is that most, not all, but most illnesses can be really improved or even cured completely with the same exact prescription. That prescription is a proper diet for your body, a proper amount of movement, not too much, but enough. Get your body moving, lift some weights, sleep well, have supportive relationships. Okay, these are the cures for most things. And I forgot again what I was saying. Oh, the broth. Yes. So the diet piece, you know, people say, oh, I have this condition, or I have that condition, or I have that condition. But you know what? Really, honestly, you can do a lot of the same things for whatever your condition and find a lot of relief. And then you can start tweaking with supplements or maybe real specific foods that you need to leave out or some things you need to add in. But a lot of illnesses come from not having a healthy gut lining. That's leaky gut. And a great way to get your gut towards, set it on that path of healing is bone broth. And it's best if you make your own. And I have a video about that. I have a write-up on the blog about it. And it's not hard. It does take some time, even with the Instant Pot. It's a several-hour process to really extract all that goodness out of your bones. But it's so worth it. You make a large batch at a time and freeze it, and then you have it. And so all these recipes are using broth, and that's a way of getting it in. You know, a functional medicine doctor might tell you you need to drink 3 cups of broth a day. But true bone broth doesn't have the best taste. Honestly, it's not like just a chicken stock that you've simmered some things on the stove for an hour. That tends to have a really pleasing flavor. That's that chicken soup that everybody loves. But actual bone broth, when you get all those minerals in there, it changes the flavor, and it's, in my opinion, is not as enjoyable to simply drink. But I love to cook with it. It does add a lot of flavor. I know it's adding all that nutrition. So all of these sort of soupy, saucy recipes are really great for getting in that healing bone broth that will help literally just about everything. So I have my last piece of meat in here. Just want to get that a little brown on both sides, and when that is finished, I'll pull it out with my other meat here, and then I'll add in all these veggies, and we'll give them a few minutes to brown. Let's see how many minutes. 5 to 8 minutes. We just want them to start to break down a little bit. So I'm still on saute more. I'll pull that last piece out so you can see my meat is brown. It's definitely not cooked. I'll add all these veggies in all at once. A lot of times I'll add garlic later so it doesn't burn, but it'll be fine. I'm just going to give that a stir. I'm going to add a sprinkle of salt to help start to draw some moisture out of those vegetables, and a little extra pepper, remembering that all the seasoning we have is what was on that meat. And yes, I put a significant amount in with the arrowroot, but we didn't end up using all of that. So adding a little here is not going to over-season. If you are using broth from a package, definitely keep in mind the sodium content. You can usually find low sodium versions, but bear that in mind if you, as you're seasoning at this step, maybe give your broth a taste and see if it's salty. So let that go for a few minutes, and then I'll be back. Okay, my veggies are getting translucent, they're cooking down, and I'm ready to get this show on the road. So I'm going to add my 1.5 cups of broth. It's going to steam. And I want that because that's going to help to deglaze my pan. I've told you this before in other videos. I haven't had this happen to me, but I have read that if you have a lot of that fond, those browned bits on the bottom of your Instant Pot, that it may not pressurize. So definitely take your time. It's stainless steel, you're not going to hurt it. Just take your time and scrape those up, at least the majority of it, which you want that in your dish anyway, right? So in go my tomatoes. That's just 1 cup of crushed tomatoes. Stir that around. And then in goes my meat. I'm going to use my fingers because if I just slide them in, they'll go plop and my liquid will then jump out at me. So I'm just stick them all in there. Then I use my tongs and kind of stir them around to make sure they're all down in the broth. And then I want all the rest of this in, all those meat juices, and there's a little bit of the arrowroot there. Just get that all in. Tonight I'm going to serve this with actual real mashed potatoes because cauliflower was really expensive this week. But potatoes were not. So we're going to have mostly potatoes, some just organic yellow potatoes, and I have one of those big bags of cauliflower rice from Costco, and I'm going to add some cauliflower, but it will be mostly potatoes. And then, so you have to turn this off. Always when you're switching, at least with my model, you have to turn it off and then move to your other mode of cooking. So with our cauliflower, potatoes, and Swiss steak, we'll just have a salad on the side. Unless I find some green veggie in the bottom of the crisper drawer that needs a home, then we'll just cook that up. Okay, so get it on. You saw me check the rubber gasket. We're checking the valve. That is down and set. We move it to sealing. We want to cook this for 60 minutes. Actually, I'm going to look at the time. And because, okay, I want manual. Because I know my meat is pretty tender and I want to be able to eat in an hour, I'm going to do 45 and it will be cooked for sure because I've used this same cut of meat to make my Mongolian beef in here and it cooks for something like 12 minutes. So I know that this will be plenty of time. So I'll see you back here in about an hour. Hi everybody, so our 45-minute cook time is over and I just did a quick release because we're ready to eat and I knew that it would be done. So this is nice and thick already. I don't know that I'm going to add a slurry. So in my instructions I said if it's not thickened to your liking, you can make a little slurry of water and arrowroot, or you can use glucomannan, which is from that konjac root. So it would be, it's basically a fiber supplement, but it is a thickener. So you could use that as well for a lower carb thickener. But let me just show you how yummy and tender this is. Let me fish out a piece of meat. I have some, my smashed potatoes I told you I was going to make. Oh my goodness. The knife is totally not necessary there. See how tender that is? Part of that's the cut of meat and part of it is cutting against the grain. And the veggies too still have held their shape. So this is good. I just went ahead and turned saute on because I always do to kind of let it boil and evaporate a little bit, but it's really not necessary. It's great just like it is. So I'm going to turn that off. So I wanted to show you the meat. Actually, that was a small piece. I'm a growing girl, so let me fish out another piece here. It's not super big. There we go. So 2 of those little slices, and then I'm going to ladle on. Oh, you know what? I wanted to taste the broth for seasoning. Perfect. I've been finishing everything with some Himalayan sea salt lately. Because I'm basically doing a ketogenic diet right now, you really need those electrolytes, the extra minerals, and that helps with just some symptoms that people have sometimes when they do a keto diet, headaches and that keto flu or carb flu kind of thing. So it's just a teeny bit under-seasoned for my taste, but I'll just top it with a little of my Himalayan salt. And it's not very salty tasting, so I don't season entirely while I'm cooking with that because it just doesn't season enough. So here is my Swiss steak in the Instant Pot, and just a little bit different from a regular pot roast with celery and tomatoes. Otherwise it's very much the same, but the flavor comes out differently and it's really delicious. I enjoy this a lot, and it's going to definitely be on the menu as the weather starts getting cooler. So we have this, and actually I did find a bunch of okra in the fridge. My garden is still producing okra, which is great. So I sauteed up some okra, and I'll actually just put that in because that will be really yummy in my broth, my sort of stew. So I hope you enjoy this one. Swiss steak, it's really simple. All in, takes about an hour and a half. An hour to an hour and a half with the cooking time, depending on the cut of meat you use. And it's delicious and hearty, and I hope you enjoy it. Thanks, everybody.